after it was announced that the Senate Parliamentarian was recommending that the minimum wage increase not be a part of the bill. Again, it's a recommendation, and this person is not a living incarnation of God. In theory, one could oppose the recommendation. The chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, Bernie Sanders, said that in the coming days, he'll be working with his colleagues in the Senate to move forward with an amendment to take tax deductions away from large profitable corporations that don't pay workers at least $15 an hour, and to provide small businesses with the incentives they need to raise wages. So in theory, that could be a way to try to push in the same direction, which is something. But sort of as I alluded to in the intro, Democrats could also try to overrule the parliamentarian's guidance, effectively insisting on including the wage increase in legislation anyway, or try to rewrite the provision in a way that adheres to the Senate rules. In 2001, the parliamentarian at the time, Robert Dove, was unceremoniously ousted from his position after Republican leaders found fault with his rulings. I have a feeling they will probably consider the rulings of the parliamentarian to be the most sacred thing ever now. But that is something that could happen. Although apparently Vice President Kamala Harris, in her role as president of the Senate, would not vote to overrule the parliamentarian, according to top White House officials. So she could, and she's previously, like, you can Google minimum wage increase, Kamala Harris. She says that it needs to go to $15, but apparently, again, add this to the group of people that best interpretation possible values the rules of the Senate more than giving people the wage increase that they both desperately need absent a pandemic, but inside of one could definitely use that assistance.
And this is all the result of, like, let's think about the framing. What has gone down to get us where we are in terms of the framing. The parliamentarian is looking to see, we're all like, the parliamentarian, yes or no, can we, can't we? Look at the history that got us to this point. This is to see whether this applies to the Byrd rule applies that allows for voting 50-50 as opposed to 60-40, right? Or 61-39. That whole dynamic is utter, total, stupid BS that is so unmoored from even the theoretical history of the filibuster that it needs to be wildly abandoned right now. Already, the Senate is not a 1-to-1 representation of what people in America think. Already, the Senate overrepresents Republican voices. And so really a 50-50 vote in the Senate is more like a 60-40 vote in the general population. It would be the equivalent of a 60-40 vote in the House of Representatives, in terms of how they represent the population in America. So to then go and say, of that already 60-40 breakdown, I need another 60-40 breakdown. We're getting into like the 80-20 representation of America if it's the Democrat, if it's the Republicans holding America hostage. Vice versa, when it's a 60-40 and the Republicans hold it and they need a 60-person threshold, then it's more like a 50-50 breakdown of the population of America. That's what's psychotic about it. And now we're sitting here and the parliamentarian is just one person. Every other major decision is not made by a 1-judge panel. It's made by a 3-judge panel, or in the case of the Supreme Court, a 9-judge panel.
Yeah.
And we're just going down on whatever her name is. That's like, yeah, I've been doing this since 2012. I read it, I thought about it. Yeah. And I give her the benefit of the doubt. I look at it, it is not like a slam dunk that just because this has to, the budget would change. Like, this is a very, very policy-like thing.
Yeah.
But if that's the standard we're holding it to, well, then the tax hike was also against this. The thing that they've allowed in the past, they shouldn't have allowed.
That had much bigger budgetary implications.
And it's not just that it has budgetary implications that makes it past the Byrd rule, to my understanding. That is a part of it, but there's specific kinds of budgetary implications. And in this situation, I do believe that it's a mix of the donors who, the major donors who run companies that fund the politicians. And it's this just terror that the Democrats seem to have that maybe they're wrong about their understanding of economics. I really do think that's it. And they're really, really scared because they've been scared by everyone in their ear saying it's not such a good idea. It's not such a good idea, into believing that that they might be wrong and it might overheat the economy. And the last thing is the minimum wage right now. The reason that $15 an hour scares them is because we're so behind in raising the minimum wage. Like you'll hear Republicans say like, why is it that and it's happened in California when they raised the minimum, essentially the minimum wage when it related to full-time employment. You'll see Republicans and business owners say, why do the Democrats always double things? It went from a 20 to a 40. It's going from a 7 to a 15. Why are they doing it? Well, that's because y'all fought so hard for so long to make it so unjust right now that when we ask for you to catch up on your back pay to the American people, you're like, well, it's so crazy. Yeah, that's how we feel. You're gaslighting us.
Exactly. You could have made it a gradual series of increases over the course of decades. You chose not to do that, thus putting us in a position where to have any meaningful change, in theory, you would have to double it or something like that. Yeah, we'll talk more about I can talk about the filibuster endlessly, but anyway, really fast, I want to give credit to a few of those who are advocating for a number of different ways that the minimum wage increase could still happen, including Representative Ro Khanna, who will be joining us next Tuesday on the show. We said, I'm sorry, an unelected parliamentarian does not get to deprive 32 million Americans the raise they deserve. This is an advisory, not a ruling. VP Harris needs to disregard and rule a $15 minimum wage in order. We were elected to deliver for the people. It's time we do our job. And Ilhan Omar responded, abolish the filibuster, replace the parliamentarian. What's a Democratic majority if we can't pass our priority bills? This is unacceptable. Exactly. And what the Democrats already have to pass so many hurdles to have even a chance at exercising political power. And I'm not going to relitigate all of them because we've done it endlessly on the show. When they finally pass all of those, and based on very specific promises, they are under an obligation to actually make good on them. So hopefully that will happen.
Yes, and then just really fast. This delays it so much because the House doesn't want to back down. The House is still going to push it through with the minimum wage increase in there. It's going to go to the Senate. The Senate's going to amend it. Then it has to go back to the House with the amendment where the Senate will say, nah, I don't want to have it in there. And so it's just delaying these payments that were originally going to be $2,000, which are now $1,400. But those also are not going to be adjusted for how late the payment is. And in the meantime, it makes Democrats look like idiots because they have the numbers, they should have the votes, but the people don't have the checks yet and won't for months or a month.
Exactly, and I'm glad that you mentioned that the checks are not being adjusted. Thankfully, nobody has additional expenses over and above what they had on the first week of January, according to our government.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.